All right, Coach Lee here, back from another successful race across the East, and I have the t-shirt to prove it. This race is part of the Race Across American series. You have its sister ride, Race Across the West, out west. And it's the second year of them doing just this last 630 miles of Ram during the actual Ram race. And it is a brutal course of the entire Race Across America. These last 630 miles are often considered by most Ram riders to be the most difficult because it is just all up and down. It is giant climbs. It is steep climbs. It is rollers. The weather is usually pretty mild, but it's just a brutal beast of a course. So let's break everything down, what we did. The athlete that I worked with this year, Adam Gacky, got second overall, first in his age group, and this was the very first time that he ever tried one of these events. And so, we have a great data from him. We're going to look at some of that data. The winner, Marco Bello, did a fantastic job. And we have some of his data, so we'll look at that data, but we'll talk gearing, fueling, tech, everything that we did to make this the best race across the East that I've ever done. I was in that crew car, that front crew car the entire time, and it was absolutely fantastic. Another fun fact about this is that this was the third fastest time ever on this course. And so we did good. We were smoking along and we did good. So let's jump into the course and let's talk all things Race Across the East. Buckle up. This is going to be a longer video. And for the 10 of you that watch this, I say thank you. All right, so we have 630 miles and we have 41,000 feet of elevation gain. It is just all up and down. It is just massive rollers. And so you have this section, then you have, it's a rather flattish section, but once again, you get here, we're just going up and down on rollers. Then we have the big plateau, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these just ridiculous climbs. And at least one of them, it was this one, where Adam had to get out of the saddle. So he was able to stay in the saddle for this, and this. But it was this one where he just had to get out of the saddle and crush that bad boy, which I already knew because, I had done this race before and I knew about that climb. And so in training, we had him rocking this out, right? And that's key. You have to be able to train for your event. And so we had him ready to go. All right, here's another example of the elevation profile, and you can see we get up to about 3,000 feet, but this is the Race Across the East. This is in the guide book, and so 630 miles. So let's talk all things gearing. Right? This is one of those big things that I will often get pushback from clients when I want them to go really big on the back and small in the front. And one of the reasons is that there's a cost to all of this, right? So Adam rides SRAM. I personally ride SRAM. I love SRAM for the mountains. They have that big cassette that's 3610 that you can put on the SRAM group set, and then they have they have different size rings for the front, and so they have a 46-33, a 48-35, and a 50-37, which are their common rings. I recommend anybody wanting to do Race Across the East do a 46-33 on the front and a 10-36 on the back. That's going to give you your best shot at success. When you're going up those climbs, you want to be able to spin up those climbs, right? So a watt is made through force and it's made through cadence. And so you do not want to grind up these mountains like cadence 55, cadence 65. You want to be able to flutter up these climbs as easy as possible. You want to be 75, 80 on just the steepest of climbs in your race pace. So that would be, for most people, their upper zone 1, lower zone 2. So you want to be able to do upper zone 1, lower zone 2 when you're going up these climbs. You cannot blow up on on all these climbs. So that is crucial. So this is what we did for Adam. He went with the Speed Point Trek, and we had a 36 on the back for that, and we had a 48-35 on the front for that. And then he just went with the straight up Madone with no cockpit. Again, he had the 36 on the back, and he had the 48-35. Now, one of the problems is that the SRAM loved to sell their group set with the power meter. That power meter becomes extremely problematic if you want to swap out rings. If you are an ultra cyclist, if you're any cyclist, every event, every course demands different gearing. Every course demands that you swap out those front rings. Every course demands that you swap out that rear cassette. Borrego Springs, we're going to have a different gearing scenario when we're out there in October because it is largely flat, right? Very different gearing. That's one of the most important things. Take that gearing extremely seriously. Don't just take what the stock gave you. You're going to want to be swapping this in and out. And now SRAM, they do put that power meter on a lot of their group sets. With athletes, if they come to me, they say, should I get the power meter on the crank set? I'm like, absolutely no. Go with pedals so that you can easily swap out those rings, right? So the power meter, the Cork power meter, which is an awesome power meter. I mean, what is it, like 500, 600 extra bucks? And so you don't want to ride with the power meter on your rings. And so that's why I recommend like something like the Favero Asioma, which I ride with, those power pedals. So that way you can just easily swap out rings, easily swap out crank sizes, easily swap out anything that you need to give you the best chance of success on this course. But this bike right here, the Madone, it was extremely light. And even the Speed Concept, or the Speed Point, it was amazingly light for a TT bike. And Adam likes the sleds. He likes to spend all of his time in these ultra events in the sleds, which is one of his superpower. And then for the seats, both seats had the Infinity saddle, and we had nothing wrong with the posterior of Adam on this entire trip. He rocked it out, and his body rocked it out. Now, one of the biggest things is like when you're doing these ultra events, is that I highly recommend getting to that event days early for the event so that you can relax, that you can unwind, so that you can build with your team, especially if it's a new team where no one knows each other. You can build with that team. And that's what Adam did for us this year. So my first year that I did this, we arrived the day before race start, have 1,000 tasks to complete. We start that race exhausted, but it was how schedules worked out. It was the best that we could possibly do. This year we had, different schedules, new crew members, new team, new racer. And so we got in. Race starts Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. We got to Ohio Sunday in the afternoon, and we were just able to relax, have a good time, chill. Adam was able to Airbnb this huge 5-6 bedroom farmhouse, and here's Adam right here enjoying his morning coffee. It was huge. It was all separate. And it was a gorgeous place. So I highly recommend you do that. Get there a couple days in advance. And by the time we rolled into that Wednesday 8 a.m. start, we were just so relaxed. And we got to know each other as teammates, which is really important for the crew. We rocked it out. We got to cook. We cooked all of our meals. We didn't go out to eat a single time. So we cooked all our meals in this farmhouse where they had a great grill. So we got a ton of steaks. We got just a ton of great stuff. And there's Adam right there on the eve of glory. All right. Then we get to the start sign, and we went for our communications. Obviously, we went with, communications. It's one of those things that are highly personal. Some people like the communications, the radios in the ear. It really depends on the individual athlete. Adam really wanted to try this experiment with the communications, and it worked perfectly. So we, Adam did the research. He rocked it out. He got a great communications device, and so we were able just to communicate with him at all times. And at certain times, it is more important. If Adam ever needed anything, which he didn't too much, but because we had him dialed, every hour he does this, etc. But, there was some certain spots on the road where, especially as you're blowing into Atlantic City, those last 100 miles, it can kind of get kind of confusing, and we have to go all the way over to the left lane, and so we have to go across multiple lanes of traffic, busy traffic. And so it's just great that we could communicate. We could say, hey, Adam, we're blocking you right now. There you go. Another thing about this communications was navigation, in that for the 680 miles, there was only one instance where Adam went off course for about 5 miles. I mean, not 5 miles, 5 yards. Like literally in 630 miles, there were absolutely no wrong turns whatsoever. We blew through this thing, except for one point where there was his Garmin map. He was running his Garmin map, and he went off course for about 5 yards, if that, but he was quickly back on course. But that's amazing. That's exactly what you want. If your rider is getting frustrated because you're making wrong turns, going down wrong roads, that becomes extremely problematic for everybody, right? So great. Then there we are at the start. We went with a 4-man crew, 2 vehicles, 3 people in the front vehicle and 1 person in the back vehicle. That works really well because you have the navigator, and we chose pretty much to use Ride with GPS on the phone. Worked really well because the phone gets better GPS reception than the iPad. The iPad does not get very good GPS, so the phone gets great GPS. Then we had Ride with GPS, and then I had my 1050. They had the course on there. I was in the, it's worked perfect, right? So we had kind of backup systems and everything. And so navigation was not an issue whatsoever. We rocked it out, and it does stress out a lot of people. But the 3 people in the front, you have 1 person navigating, 1 person driving, 1 person just doing whatever tasks that need to be done, including, fueling, refilling water bottles, getting water bottles, that kind of situation. So we had a really good show, and everything worked just fine. Everything was beautiful. So now we're out on the road, and this is that first section. So this is blowing into West Virginia, somewhere around here. And you can kind of see that it is just the rollers. It is all up and down. And here's Adam just rocking it out. The course, it is a course. And so there, if we had stop time, Adam had 1 total hour of sleep. So we get to mile 350, takes an hour sleep. Then he blows into Atlantic City from there. But there's going to be lots of stop. There's going to be stop signs. There's going to be stop lights. We pretty much hit every stop light that there is between Blanchester, Ohio, and Atlantic City. But there's going to be tons of road construction, right? There's going to be a water burst, a water pipe burst, something like that. Well, we were down one town, and there was 3 giant combines. They had to shut down Main Street for this town because 3 giant combines came through. It is what it is. It's part of the course. It's highly unlikely. It's highly unlucky. But that's how it is, and that's how you go. You make the most of it. You relax, take deep breaths, just engage in a little meditative state, and then you get back on the bike and just slowly roll back to your race pace. Here's a great example of one of those climbs. This is the top of one of those climbs. Here's Adam out of the seat. There was only a couple of times that Adam was out of the seat for the entire course. He had great gearing. But yeah, it was those last kicker climbs, and you can see them right here. They are just ridiculous, and they are to be taken very seriously. And if again you train for these, then you can do very well. So Adam lives in Wisconsin, and he trains in no mountains. It is all 100% flat, but through the plans that I give him, we have tons of cadence manipulation. We have lots of low cadence work, 65 RPM grinds, things like that to get him ready for these types of climbs. So if you train for it, you can do it. You just have to realize that they're there and start your training months in advance, and you can train for these climbs even on the flattest of roads. Oh, yeah. So the course we were very lucky. We got out ahead of a lot of storms behind us. So if you weren't one of the 1, 2, 3 front riders, then your race across the East this year was really rain soaked. Previous year, its first year, no rain whatsoever. This year, tons of rain. We only got in at about an hour's worth of rain, and we lost about 20 minutes. We did have to bring Adam into the car. It was absolutely too brutal out there. It was too windy. There was lightning. There was thunder. So we did finally bring him in the car for about 20 minutes. Adam just relaxed. He's looking good. He's no worries. But, you do have to ride through the rain. If you want a PR for yourself, if you want to try to win your age group or win the overall, you have to keep moving on these courses. Slow miles are better than no miles, and you have to keep moving on these courses. And that's your goal, right? You just got to keep moving forward. As little time off the bike as possible. But we couldn't avoid it. He rode as much as he could in that rain, but it just got absolutely insane. All right, so fueling. Here's the schedule that he ran, and here's one of the biggest points. I cannot say this enough. Fueling is individual for every single athlete. You have to experiment in training so that by event day, there are no questions. There are only answers on event day. You have to find the right strategy for you. You need carbs. You need a lot of carbs. You need carbs every hour, 24 hours a day. You need fats. You need proteins. You need those 3 things. And you need electrolytes as well. Adam went with primarily a liquid fueling strategy for this thing. Very few solids whatsoever. It was pretty much 90 carbs an hour. We went with Formula 369. Which is a great solution to because it has glucose and fructose in it, and is at a 1-to-1 ratio. You can buy a 10-pound bag of it, which has 4,200 grams of carbs in that 10-pound bag. And that 10-pound bag, that's pretty much what you need to do for a race across the East, right? Given our schedule and what we wanted to do, that 10-pound bag was our goal. So here's what Adam did. We wanted to simplify this as much as possible. And so we had bottles labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. Hour 1, 3 scoops clean Formula 369. Hour 2, 2 scoops, and then 1 scoop of the 369 caffeine. Hour 3, 3 scoops clean. Hour 4, 2 scoops with recovery, 1 scoop caffeine. And now that recovery is great because it does have the proteins and fats in it. And so he's getting all of everything that he needs in terms of fats, everything that he needs in terms of proteins, everything that he needs in terms of carbs, 90 grams of carbs an hour for this thing, and he's getting it all. And this works well for Adam. It might not work well for you at all. That's the most important thing. There is no one nutritional strategy to nail this. You need carbs, you need fats, you need proteins. How you get them is what you have to find out in training. All right, so that's very important. And then we recorded everything. And so, bottle one, we recorded the times of how all this worked. So, he starts off with 1 and 2. So, 1 was 8 a.m., 2 was, 9 a.m., 3, 9:41, 4, 9:41. And so that's kind of how we wanted to make sure that we had recorded the times on all this. And as we're communicating with Adam, we're like, hey, Adam, you're coming up. You should finish your nutrition by now because we're going to bring you a couple new bottles. So make sure that you finish up that nutrition before we replenish you. And so it's a constant communication to remind the rider to eat, especially through the night. Athletes, it gets cold. Athletes are not going to want to eat as much, but you still have to nail your nutritional targets. In the heat of the day and the cold of the night, you have to nail it 24 hours, 7 days a week, baby. And so we did great. We recorded like the food. He had a burger at 12:27 a.m. And so we recorded everything and just everything went great. And we had this taped to the dashboard of the vehicle, and then he had other things in here: a double cheeseburger from Culver's, extra pickles, ketchup, Snickers would be great, coffee, all that great stuff. And so the athlete communicated very well with us in terms of what he wanted. All right, now let's break down some data. Now this is fascinating. So this is 10 hours, okay? So that big storm that you saw a couple minutes ago, that claimed our Garmin. Another Garmin went to heaven. And so we only have about 350 miles of data for his ride, but it's great data. It's the crucial data. It's the data that I needed to see, like everything, like what was he pedaling, what was his cadence here at this point, how fast was he going at this point. Where do we really need to think about switching out the TT bike versus the road bike? All these types of questions I get to see in this data. So we are 170. So for that first 10 hours, the white is kind of where we had to stop. And these are mostly just stop signs, etc. But he had 170 average watts, 184 normalized power. And in that first 10 hours, he got in 200 miles. Now, going through the mountains, he got 134 average watts, 159 normalized power, and he did 150 miles. Now, you'll notice the big discrepancy between the first 10 hours average watts and the second, basically 10 hours of power data in terms of average watts, in that, when you're doing these climbs, you want to let that power fall out when you're descending. You do not want to pedal down the descents and keep on the watts. So when you get through the mountains, your average watts should be very low. That's why the inventors of all these concepts, like Andy Coggan, they came up with normalized power, right? So if you just kind of flatten out the course, and if you were to ride that course flat, what would your power look like? Okay. And so we have, for Adam, we have 134 average watts, but we have 159 normalized power. That takes into account no pedaling on all these descents, right? We want to rest those legs on all these descents. We want to go upper zone 1, lower zone 2, your race pace. We want to do your race pace up there. We do not want to do tempo, zone 3, up these climbs at all. If you start doing tempo, zone 3, up these climbs, you are going to burn yourself out. So Adam was able just to do zone 1. He was able to just stick into his race pace going up these climbs. So the watts, that he was doing right here, he was basically able just to do up these climbs, and then he was able to let it fall out. And so this was really, really respectable. For his first time doing this course, for not living in the mountains, for living only in the flats of Wisconsin, this really was a great show. Now, we have some data. So now let's look at Marco's data. So at mile 350, Marco was literally, he's the overall winner, legendary ultra cyclist, all that great stuff, worthy champion. And he was about mile 350. He was only about a mile in front of us. His tracker went off. So we did not actually know where Marco was off on the course. We could have sent if we thought that, if Marco was in our sights and we wanted to beat Marco, we would have had the second car when his GPS receiver went off and we could no longer track Marco. We would have sent the second car. We would have said, go find Marco. If Marco was our target for this race. Marco was not our target for this race. Giving Adam a PR and rocking out his best ride, that was our goal for this race. Now, so let's look at Marco's data. So when we think about threshold and FTP, Marco and Adam are just very similar in terms of their aerobic engines. They're very similar. And so you have a tier of riders that are Marco and Adam that are super, super strong. And then for those of you who saw Race Across the West with Matthew Left Hand, we have, just Matthew Left Hand, which is still, when it comes to his aerobic threshold, his FTP, however you want to think about it, he's another level up. And so it's all about riding, not according to someone else's threshold. It's about riding to your threshold in these events. And so you have to pace your own watts. And so, but we got some great data. So when we look at this first 10 hours of Marco, we got 200 miles. He got 205 miles. And we can see that the average watts, everything was very similar. Now, he rides a modified road bike. We were on a TT bike and then a straight up climbing road bike. And then, but Marco rides with a modified road bike with aero cockpit. And so this is very interesting data for us to study, and that he got 5 more miles. So 170, 169. But now in the mountains, we got actually 4 more miles than Marco in the mountains, with less watts, which is also very interesting thing to think about as well. And so when we look at the two riders, they were really, Marco was better on the flats. Seems that Adam was better in the mountains, and that by mile 350, when we go into Cumberland, which was kind of our first planned stop, that's where we plan to stop, regroup, talk, have a team meeting. How are you feeling? Where do you want to go from here? Because again, Adam has never done anything like this. Now we know what Adam could do. So if Adam was going to do Race Across the East again, we get to Cumberland, break, hit Atlantic City next. Okay, we know that now. And so, yeah, we got to Cumberland, which is at the very end of this data right here. And Adam was feeling good. He just took us, whatever it is, about 24 hours to get to Cumberland. The sunrise was coming up, so he did all the mountains, the descents, everything in the dark. And then when we're riding into Cumberland, that's where we see the sunrise. Adam chose to get an hour's worth of sleep, rocked out an hour's worth of sleep, up back on the bike, and then rocked it all the way in to Atlantic City for a 2 a.m. finish time. Now, again, this was Adam's first time doing this, and so we had no idea where he would be on the course or wherever. So, given his training data, giving just very loose expectations, we were kind of thinking, somewhere the race starts Wednesday at 8 a.m. We were kind of thinking that he would roll in Friday morning to Atlantic City at some time, like 8 a.m., maybe 9 a.m., something like that. But no, Adam, he just crushed it, blew through everything, finishes at 2 a.m. We're 3 hours behind Marco for this ride. And we could not be happier as a team. Adam crushed his, he crushed his watts, all that great stuff. Last thing I wanted to talk about is that, and I've already talked about it a little bit, but this is a race, okay? It's hard for people to wrap their mind around that this is a 630-mile course, but it still comes down to racing. And so here we are at mile 135. This was, we could tell by the look on Marco's face that this was highly unexpected for Adam to go by Marco at mile 135. And then we had his other great athlete. I can't pronounce his first name, but his last name was Ely. And Marco, this is mile 135, but again, at mile 350, we were, Marco was a mile ahead of us. So he passed us, but he was always close out there in front of us. And then this gentleman, we're in second, but this gentleman comes through, blows through, and he is trading. We're just going back. So we're in second, then we're in third, then we're in second, then we're in third. Key to all of this is that Adam was not racing either Marco or this other gentleman, Ellie. Adam was just riding his own watts. He was staying within his world. Where racing really comes into play is that if we're close to a position that we want out there on a 630-mile course, that's where the teams in the cars can really get on their game and keep Adam rolling down the road as much as possible. No gas stations, no anything. Just constant encouragement to keep Adam going at his own pace down the road. That is crucial. This isn't the Tour de France. You can't make time by trying to charge down your enemy, if you will, on this course. You have to ride within your watts. And so it is a race, and it's fascinating to a lot of people out there. Again, when it comes to if one rider is closer to the other, you might, there's some strategy involved. If you were going to take a break here or something, you might postpone it if you don't need it, etc. There are some things to think through when you're in a race scenario. Okay. So, we get to the end and there's Adam, right? It's 2 a.m. in the morning and there's not a lot of fans there. So if you arrive at like noon, that's a really good time to arrive because they have the flyover up. There's people out there cheering. There's much more Ram support. But if you ride in at 2 a.m. in the morning, there's going to be very little support. Certainly, no one's going to be lining up to wave you in. And so this was a great trip. So me as a coach, and I thought a lot about this. But me as a coach, I have expectations for my athletes. I know Adam has this massive aerobic engine. And he likes to, ride in that TT position. So he has a lot of these superhuman powers that make ultra a great sport for him. And then I have expectations, but in the ultra world, it's just, okay, we need to train, we need to do the events, and we need to bring you up to these expectations. And on this ride, Adam just rocked it out. He blew through our expectations. We had, so he finishes in 41 hours, and we kind of were like ballparking 48 to 50 hours, just based, that on the fact that he's never done this before. We didn't know how much time he could stay on the bike. And that is one of the keys to this ultra world of racing, is staying on the bike. There's these 24-hour races. You might have, for a 24-hour race, the winners and the dedicated pros, right? The guys who've been doing this forever, they might just be 5 minutes off the bike total for 24 hours, right? So that's the goal. Find a wattage that you can ride that enables you to stay on the bike. And Adam nailed that. He does everything in training that I ask him to do, and sometimes I ask him to do some big things, but everything that Adam did was in preparation for this event. He signed up for it last year, and he rocked it out. Second overall, first age group, and third fastest time on this course. So congratulations, Adam. I hope you made it this far if you ever decide to watch this video. Hope you made it. But everybody, thanks so much for watching. Ultra is a demanding sport. but there's just so much love out there, so much passion out there, and just so much excitement for all the riders and their teams and their crews. It's such a beautiful sport. This is 2 days after the event, 3 days after the event, and I am still personally just on fire. I have this amazing high from this event. Still, it was a beautiful thing. And thanks to all the crew members that were out there, thanks to all the racers that were out there, this race across the East was really special. So, hey, if you're looking for any kind of ultra coaching, Coach Lee here, got some big wins. Had an athlete get the win Calvin's Challenge this past edition, and he got a course record. Had lots of athletes doing big things out there. And so, hey, if you want to tickle your ultra funny bone, or you're already a dedicated, experienced racer, I can find you watts on that course. Take care, everybody.